An Oklahoma teen told police he killed his parents because they had been communicating with him telepathically and were Satan worshipers. This according to an affidavit KWTV reported it obtained. 19-year-old Michael Elijah Walker is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. His 17-year-old brother told police he woke up to the sound of gunshots.
Police?
Yes, I believe he does.
The affidavit states Walker told his 17-year-old brother to hang up the phone. He says Walker told him he shot their parents because they were sending him messages telepathically and they were Satan worshipers. People who knew the couple are still in disbelief.
There really aren't any words to describe it.
Tyler Smith played in a band with Mike. He says the Walkers were well known in the metro and loved by many people.
All the friends, musicians, everybody, co-workers, anybody that they came in contact with, just keep them all in our thoughts.
The couple leave behind 3 children. One is now in the Oklahoma County Jail accused of the tragic crimes. Walker confessed to shooting his parents multiple times after an argument about Satanism.
I hope that we can all find some peace at some point.
Walker told police his parents never harmed him during that argument. He said his father only grabbed his leg, demanding the gun from him. In the studio, Jennifer Pierce, Oklahoma's own news.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Now, this story is obviously a story that we hear all the time, right? But how about this in reverse? This is something that should scare people as far as censorship, because when I hear this story, and listen, I'm not one of these people that's going to be here and tell you if the story's real or the story's not. I mean, I understand there's people that cover that stuff. For all we know, it could be real. It couldn't be. But what I take from this story is the fact that the narrative behind it is that there's a son who is speaking to his parents about Satanism, who believes that they telepathically were messing with his head and that they're Satanists. So what does that instantly tell you, right? It instantly plants seeds of what in people's heads about anyone who believes in the occult, anyone who believes in Satanism. Now, when I talk about Satanism, I'm not talking about the Satanic Temple or the Church of Satan, because those are fronts for Satanism. They're fronts that are there to cover up and be the lines of defense for any of these types of stories, right? They'll always come out when these types of stories occur because they'll say, oh, this is a tragic story, and, one of the reasons that would fuel somebody like this into, who happens to be schizophrenic, one of the things that would fuel someone like this is hearing all these online stories about Satanism. And really what we are is an organization that believes in the LGBT and women's rights. That's the whole purpose of stories like this even hitting the mainstream, but more importantly, the narrative that they take from it, right? Instead of the story just being about this horrible thing that happened with a guy, a young kid, a teen, whatever you want to say his age is, and what he did to his parents, right? They have to obviously pull this and say, well, he had a mental disorder and he was talking to his parents about Satanism, right? So then they can come out and they could say what? They could say, well, all these sensationalized stories out there are all made up. And that, people that could call for an uprising, they shouldn't be allowed to have channels and stuff because they're putting out fake and misinformation, even though they never address the stuff that I talk about, the signs, the symbols, the connections to Freemasonry, the connections to all these secret societies, right? All these stories that have come out that they claim have been debunked, like McMartin Preschool and all this, where kids come forward and say this stuff and they think, the kids are being influenced by the parents are telling them to say it. I mean, there's always an excuse, right? There's always something. And they just think that in a world where we have the technology and all the things that we have now, they can't hide for much longer. And they know that they can't. So what they're doing is they're amping up the speed for which they're going to, come out and have people already indoctrinated with the satanic mindset, the satanic beliefs, right? The do without wilt mindset, the acceptance of all these things, the trans, everything that we see going on, pro-abortion, right? Because then it makes it easier for them to come out, because how much longer do you think they can hide? Now, I understand that most of these real satanic rituals and all these things occur underground. Okay, I've covered that before. Even the fact that they try to hint at and make fun of conspiracy theorists who believe that something's going on under the Denver airport or in the Ozarks or in Virginia, right outside of Washington D.C., Emerald City. Okay, these are all documented places that exist underground. Okay, whether they want to, they want to sit there and they want to deflect and say, oh, and yeah, we're doing all this bad stuff down there. Well, what are you doing down there? Right? What do you have a right to be down there and not tell the American people what's going on? That our government's doing fishy things underground or in the mountains of the Ozarks? I mean, give me a break. Right? So you take a story like this, which, again, sad story if it's a true story, but you look around and the first thing, that they say is sending a messages telepathically, and they were Satan worshipers, right? And then they go on to kind of give the background of the parents, how they were, great people, and then talk about how he's been sick for a while. He's been schizophrenic, right? Well, aren't there institutions and things like that? And I'm not saying that everyone who's schizophrenic should be like, but the reason that they want you to know that is they want to link it. They want you to say mental illness. This is one of the quotes that comes out. Mental illness is real and it's devastating. He was not and has not been in the right state of mind for a few years now, right? The last conversation that he has with his parents is about what? Satanism. Asking them about Satanism, asking them if they're Satanists. And then we're supposed to believe, whatever the conversation led to, that was the thing that made him go off and go do this. Well, that's what they want you to think. Of course, that's what they want you to think, right? Because this is how they start to censor people who are exposing the occult. And that's what they want. That's what they need, right? We see violence going on and events occurring at all of these types of places that happen to be linked to all of these types of conspiracies, or what they would deem conspiracies, right? I mean, what's next? We're going to see one at a Freemason lodge, so they can come out and they could say, oh, people like call for an uprising are calling for violence against these people. They're not calling for violence against anybody. Saying that these things shouldn't be done in secret, that they should be run out of town. They shouldn't exist because secret orders are good for nobody. If they're not hiding anything like they claim, then do it in public, right? Where anyone could walk in and watch your ritual so we can all see what you're up to. Just like if somebody walked into a church. So this whole story obviously is, this is a news story. This just happened a couple days ago. But when I see this, I immediately go, oh, great. Because here comes more types of censorship. Here comes the Satanic Temple coming out. And what they'll say and deflect is that, all we are is a political organization. There's tons of misinformation out there. And of course, everyone's going to believe them because nobody believes that people are liars. They just give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And Satan's the master of lies, of course. So these people just sit there and they lie. And then they talk about people like me and they say, oh, we're all crazy. And then they're like, well, prove some of this stuff, right? And if I show signs and symbols and things like that, just the Baphomet or the pentagram, they just go, oh, it's all a marketing ploy. We don't believe in it actually. So we have to censor people like Call for an Uprising and others from talking about Satanism because it could lead to this type of stuff happening. And this is pretty much what we're seeing across the board with conspiracies, right? This is why they don't want you talking about, any of these things that happen because like the thing we saw at Comet Ping Pong, right? Oh, because the guy saw these stories on YouTube, he went in and just happened to shoot a computer and nothing else, right? And this is to get the American public to think, okay, these people are dangerous. That's what they continue to need to do. That's what you just heard with the vaccinations, right? What was the whole thing behind the vaccinations? These people are dangerous who are anti-vaccination because they're affecting their children. They could cause their children to die of the flu because some crazy conspiracy they heard online. So we have to censor anti-vaccination stuff. Meanwhile, they want us all vaccinated. They want us all sick, right? But people don't want to believe that stuff. Right, so we're seeing it from all walks of life. There's an attack on all of these, things that a lot of us talk about because it's easy for them. They could just have events, or even if the events are real, because they're not always staged, they're not always fake, but they can take a narrative and they can pin it right to it. They could take a story like this in a state like Oklahoma where we've seen tons of black masses, invocations, and all that other crap that the Satanists have been doing there, right? And then the other states are down there in Arkansas with the Ten Commandment thing, getting run over and the Baphomet statue showing up. I mean, this is the world that we live in now, where you need to read these stories and you need to read between the lines. Because the message and the thing that they emphasize in the story, again, you could go through this article. Elijah Walker told investigators during a police interview that an argument began with his parents when he asked them a question about Satanism. Right? He asked him a question about Satanism. He told detectives the argument took place in his bedroom and he had his gun sitting next to him on his bed. Right? And this is the last conversation they had. talking about Satanism, it triggers him and he goes off and does this to his parents, right? So stories like this, when they come out, it affects you, it affects me, it affects free speech, it affects questioning the narrative, because this is why I've said since I've started my channel and I've talked about Satanism and the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple, I should say, is that they're there to be on the front lines. They're there to act and present themselves as a political movement. That's why their film is getting in Sundance, right? That's why they're showing up on Fox News, because they want to make sure that they can have this image of what Satanism in 2018 is, and that, the satanic panic of the past is trying to reemerge its ugly head. And these people are here to say that it's a political group, a political organization, just like we see the Masons coming out of the woodwork, defending all of the stuff of Freemasonry, how they don't worship Lucifer, right? And they get all butthurt about it when you call them out on it, because they need to keep it secret however they can while they continue to indoctrinate people. And eventually they won't have to keep it secret, because this society will want to be a part of it. They will want to be Satanists, right? Because all of the things that they're indoctrinating people with are all the part of the beliefs, the tenets of Satanism. Doing the opposite of what the Bible says, doing the opposite of what God says, doing what thou wilt. And remember, all of this is under love, the umbrella of love, which is the deception. All right? So channels like this, I mean, who knows? I'm not going to sit here and beat a drum about censorship. We've all gone through it on YouTube, no matter what you talk about. Okay, no one's had it worse than anyone else. People have lost channels. People have come back. That's why it's important for you guys, the listeners, to stay subscribed to the backup channels. Become a patron if you can. And, constantly just check in for content, because you're not going to constantly get the email notifications. Make sure your notification button is clicked, which I never tell people to do. If you like the video, if you really don't like the video, don't thumbs it up. But if you think it's important, thumbs it up, because this is how more people will find the video. It'll be recommended and things like that. Now, that might have changed since the new algorithm again, but this is why we all have to stick together, because we have to make sure, at the very least, whether you think some of the stuff that I talk about is ridiculous or not, I can't convince everybody or, show them, or their brain doesn't operate the same way mine does, where they might not think any of this stuff is relevant. That's fine. But at the end of the day, we all believe in free speech. We all have a right to have free speech. And if they create events and do things like that, then they're going to start scaring people away from talking about and exposing Satanism. And they're going to make it like a taboo thing. Oh, they can't talk about it. You can't have a YouTube channel about it. Oh, you can't have a website about it, because you're giving misinformation, and it's triggering people into doing things like what this kid did. Right? So keep those things in mind when you hear stories like this. Again, I appreciate the support everyone's been giving the channel. I leave the links up below. God bless all of you and your families, and just be safe out there.